Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guess we'll get it right.
Madam Auditor, please give us a roll call of the members present.
Councilmember Whitman.
I'm here.
Councilmember Conover. Present. Councilmember Biggs.
Here.
Councilmember Justin.
Here.
Councilmember Graham. Here. Councilmember Paparad.
Present.
And Councilmember Rivas.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you very much. We have several things to deal with this evening, as you all know. So let's start with some of the housekeeping stuff. You have in front of you the sheriff's request for transfer of funds with respect to the presentation that we got last meeting. And I think his request is to transfer from the DEA Forfeiture Fund $45,000 for this program. I understand that we're not here to decide which program he chooses or not chooses. That's up to the sheriff and the commissioners. We're merely here to determine whether or not we want to allocate the money. He can take up, we heard the presentation from the Hero 911 folks, and then I had some emails from E911. And I think, Scott, you had or someone tried to call you from the 911 RAVE program. It's really not our place to delve into the pros and cons of each. That would be between the sheriff and the commissioners. So what we have in front of us tonight is whether or not to approve this transfer from non-general fund monies to allow him to proceed into that program.
Motion approved. Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
Thank you for taking the charge on this. You know, in the wake of what's going on out there, Sheriff.
Can I say something?
You certainly can.
Just wait, I just want to make clear a misunderstanding. I don't have to go to the commissioners and get the approval of using that
It's in
money.
your budget.
The only thing I would think that you might need to talk, and that's between you and the commissioners, if that had to be contracted for. I don't know, if you don't require them to approve a contract, then you can, all right, yeah, so, no problem. Hearing a motion and a second on the floor, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Transfer's approved, Sheriff. Okay, so we have a couple other things here sort of held over. One is we have the voters registration discussion. We also have tourism, pictometry, the particular raises out that we were kind of addressing as we were going through. We have our salary ordinance, and then we have final read. So how do you want to attack it first? Do you want to go with the voters registration now?
Sure.
Let's have voters registration election board in front of us here. Probably using that wrong.
Which one first?
So I think that really to state the obvious, the discussion was surrounding the e-poll books, where we were at, and Scott, why don't you take it from here, because you were going to do some follow-up for us and give us your thoughts.
Yes. So I've had the opportunity to look at the contracts. So first and foremost, let's just get a couple of the things squared away so that we're all can try to talk about the same thing and use the same numbers.
Yep.
So we have 84 in our possession, and we're using them. And we have used them for the primary. We have, obviously, 15 of those are paid for, 69 of them are not paid for. We have contracts that are valid, that are signed by the commissioners for those 84 poll books, those remaining 69 unpaid for poll books, okay? The best that I can determine, we are not currently under contract for the remaining 51 poll books. That would take us to the magic number, I believe, of 135, which is what I think we would need, or what I've been told we would need to have to be able to do like next year's presidential election. Okay? So, I've also, through talking to multiple people, kind of pieced together that, from what I can tell, the e-poll book itself, meaning when I say this, I mean think of it as a phone the device itself seems to be a pretty solid device, okay?
Okay.
The problem seems to have been
Excuse me.
that some of the original service and training, going back to our primary, maybe wasn't up to the par that we all would have hoped it to be, okay? Which caused some of the problems that we've heard about, et cetera. My concern is that unfortunately, due to the timing, we are sitting here before we know how these things are going to have worked through this election cycle, this final cycle, okay? And the other moving part here is that the quandary we're going to have is, assuming for a moment this council were to decide that we're paying for the remaining 69 poll books, but then also made it abundantly clear that we were not going to be appropriating additional money for the remaining 51, that obviously would have a significant impact on the general election, or the presidential election next year. Now, obviously, if this council were to say, we're going to pay for the 69 poll books in possession, and we would pay for the remaining 51, then that would be the magic solution to, at least from the perspective of having the poll books, paying for the poll books, and having enough for a presidential election. I think that my best solution at this point is this. I would feel a whole lot more comfortable. My suggestion simply is this: we need to get through this election. If ES&S's service has been what we hoped it to be, then this and we can have these individuals come back to us in November. We can always do an addition. Okay? All right?
Well, the auditor said...
Well, we can always do an additional.
Not always.
Vicki, let him finish. Go ahead.
We can either do an additional in November, or we can do one at the beginning of the year, okay? But I think one of the key pieces of, the two things I really think both these people need to have, and what we need to have is this. Is ES&S living up to their end of this agreement from a service and training perspective through this general election that we have in November, okay? If they have, then that's information that they will have, and they can bring back and tell us. What they also need to know is, are we going to appropriate money for 51 more beyond the ones we already have? And frankly, that brings us into the quandary of, if we are not, then that really puts us into a pickle of, we're not, 89 or 84 of them, 84 of them are not enough for next year's presidential election.
So with that, well...
So my suggestion would be to have them come back in our normal November meeting. We will have a much better idea. My understanding is the feedback I've gotten is that the service has picked up, okay?
Okay.
See if we've had any problems. I do think, however, they need some sort of indication from us if we are going to appropriate, getting past the 69 that we have. Are we going to would we be inclined, no matter what happens in this November election, are we going to be inclined to appropriate money for 51 more that we don't currently have and aren't under contract for?
Can I ask this question? You've read through the contracts, and I want to be clear on this. So, as we see here today, 15 paid for, 69 not paid for, but we are, in your opinion, under contract to pay for them because that's what the commissioners approved, correct?
Correct.
Is it your understanding that whatever remainder that the clerk would need to get through a successful presidential election, we're not under contract for those at this time?
Correct.
How about things like, and this may be moot, but in those contracts, are there additional fees for the services? Are there anything that we have to be budgeting for, concerning ourselves with, that we are or are not under contract for? Do you know the answer to that?
I do. It's a little more complicated. There is a separate contract that I think's caused some confusion, that's dealing more with military voting, okay?
Okay.
That's separate from the poll books, all right? There is a contract for that. I do think that's caused some confusion. We have a contract for the e-poll books themselves, okay?
Right. Okay.
And then we have an overall contract for, and I think it's Central Point,
Okay.
am I saying that?
That ends next year.
Right. That service contract.
When you say next year, do you mean the end of 16?
Yes.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Yeah, hold on a second. Okay.
So that goes through, that overall service contract for our M100s and all of that, that goes through the end of 16.
With respect to the service contract, so it also addresses service to the M100s that we have,
And the auto marks.
all that stuff. So really, we're gonna need a service contract, whatever, of course.
And here's the thing, I mean, we've been with ES&S for
Right.
however long.
Right.
As we sit here, I don't think we know whether, I'm not saying we won't be,
Right.
but I don't know that, obviously that decision hasn't been made yet.
Okay. Jeremy, you had a question?
I guess that question right now is $130,000, right? With this budget in front of us, what does that cover? What does the $130,000 cover?
130, is that right,
100
for this next year's budget?
Yes,
Okay,
the capital outlays,
What it's
exactly what
supposed
does
to
it cover?
include would have been the payment for this year that we have not done yet, and the payment for next year,
For the machines.
correct. And then we had already voted on central counting, instead of taking the ballots back and forth to the precinct.
So, this is just for the
We only
machines.
have one more year after that.
How much more is it gonna cost after this $130,000?
Well, that can be included in the contract for the services. I mean, those are things that you have to, Jerry, you know when you buy a car, you get things thrown in? When you have a contract for your home to be built, sometimes they throw things in. We have to look at it from a standpoint of this also. The software that we have in place cannot be used by any other equipment. We also have to pay a franchise fee for that, which would mean you are starting from scratch with your infrastructure. We need to make sure this is to the advantage of the county as a whole.
So Karen, I want to make sure I'm clear. So the $130,000 that you're proposing for next year's budget includes the cost of 69 that have not been paid for, plus what you think you might need to get us through additional e-poll books?
No, because there were 3 payments of 49,000 apiece.
So the $130,000, does it cover the 51 remaining?
If we are allowed to transfer the initial money that we requested initially, we have 10,000 there already. We had asked to transfer 39,000 on the ballots and coding, and yes, it will.
Does that cover the last 50 we need?
That's what they just asked, I think yes, it would.
That's not what I heard.
That's what they asked.
I think to recap,
I'm still on.
if we appropriate $130,000 for 2016's budget, and we let them come back in November and do the transfers that we previously declined, between that transfer amount and the 130 in next year's budget, there would be enough to buy all 135.
So we're talking $179,000
No.
between this year and next year, round numbers.
Well, round numbers is how much? It's 130 for next year, and how much was your transfer this week?
39,000 this year, so yeah.
Okay,
169.
169.
170 round numbers.
Yep.
Are these books, is there only one vendor that these books, that you're currently
The
using?
state of Indiana has to certify which vendors they're willing to work with. And out of those, you have to understand what the county wants to do as a whole. And our concern was the future advancement of Porter County with the central county and things of that sort. And other vendors do not offer those options.
So there's no other vendor that can offer,
Other vendors offer e-poll books, but some of them are on the Maxis or the iPod, which is not compatible with what we have. So you have to look at, just like when you buy a Mac computer or you buy, one that's on Windows, it's totally different.
I get, but what I'm asking is this is the only vendor whose equipment is compatible with what our
The
system?
software we have in, right now, yes.
Okay.
Jeremy, did you have another question?
Just follow, I mean, so Scott, you looked through those contracts, there's no other additional costs that are coming with this $130,000, so the next 51 units we purchase, and we get into election next year, they're not gonna be in front of us because we need an additional this or that, because,
That's why, not that I can tell through the contracts.
We will have that service agreement that ends next year, though, that we need to take.
But that's but again, and I don't mean to interrupt you, that's the overall service agreement that we have on all of the election stuff is up. And it very well will be included in that, correct?
Including our M100s. our
Right.
voting machines.
And this.
But was it your impression that 51 of the units were not under contract currently? Did you know that?
Well, what our main situation was, we wanted to make it through this year because it was a non-presidential year, to make sure this was the equipment that we wanted and it was gonna work for us. And we were also told that we would be able to take the current systems that we have and upgrade to the latest, greatest. Just take them and switch them over to their newest one that's, I think should be approved again this month or next month.
But my question was, did you realize that there's 51 that we still need that we're not
Well,
yet
no,
under contract?
51 is, we're looking at it from a standpoint here. That's one per precinct, which is not mandatory, okay? And that is an extra. We have 123 precincts, plus we're looking at 15 on top of that. So that's why we would need 51 more. If we were to consolidate precincts and set it up properly, we would not need one per precinct. But that was our goal.
But you didn't answer his question. He said, do you understand there's 51 out of this total that's not under that contract?
Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
and I think you said because you wanted to see if this program worked, if this system works, so
Right.
you're standing here today saying that you stand behind this program
I do.
100%, and that's why you want us to allocate the $130,000 for the purchase of the final 51 and get into the presidential election next year?
I do.
And maybe you've answered this maybe in prior meeting, but let's say that you didn't have one per precinct, and let's say that you had a polling place that had two fairly decent-sized precincts voting there. If you only had one e-poll book, wouldn't that cause some delay at the polls?
Well, I guess what you would have to look at the overall 123 precincts. Because if you have smaller precincts, it's not mandatory to have one per precinct.
Gotcha.
So what you would do is take the larger precincts and put 2 in that location, or 3 if necessary.
I see what you're saying.
Last.
Oh, not fine.
So when you said that we didn't want to buy them all, the 51, you obviously had a contingency plan if you were okay with this program. So we were going to go back to what? Bid it out real fast for next year? What was the contingency plan if this was crap?
Paper and
Go
pencil.
back to paper?
Go back to the poll book.
That's your ultimate backup.
But if we, and maybe the answer to this question is obvious, but let's say that you got the 15 that you already paid for, that was already paid for, and the 69, and no additional, say that were the case. Would those 74 that you have then be 84 that you have, would they be of no value then in a presidential race because you don't have one for, or you'd be able to use in 84 precincts?
No, you can't mix, if that's your question.
Yeah.
You can't mix, it's all.
It's all in, all out, and so if we didn't, so we'd never be able to use them in a race that required all 123 precinct voting. If we only had 84 of them.
We consolidated precincts.
Yeah, you gotta remember, if there's a consolidation, that could change the numbers that you need. The other issue is if we didn't go back to those books after the November election, then when we negotiate the new service contract, we would purchase something different if that's what we're gonna do. Since we also have the needs with the M100s, if there's gonna be any repairs or replacements there, so I mean, there's other issues beyond just the poll book that we could use those as, if you wanna call them bargaining chips, to help negotiate the other contracts. So they're not gonna be, if we don't use them, they're not gonna just go in the waste and sit in the corner.
Okay.
We had hoped to have a meeting with both the council and commissioners so that we have an idea of how they would like us to proceed in the future with this. Because there are many options of how we handle future elections. But we need to agree because we do not want to go through this again. Not that we don't like being up here with you guys, I mean, seriously, but...
Well, Karen, if you don't want to go through that, then don't go buy the books before you talk to the commissioners and get your contract and come in front of this board and ask for the
We
money.
had the money and we paid for it previously. So
Well, this isn't a council problem and it's not a commissioner problem. We didn't create it. You created it.
Yes, Bob?
If you don't have enough poll books now, how did you do it in the primary?
We have enough poll books for this year.
It's not a countywide race. It's only municipal.
Yeah, I know the municipal, but I was thinking about the primary.
They have possession 84.
Yeah, we
Right.
have enough.
That's all, that's all the precincts.
That was enough to cover what we have.
Yeah.
But you made a comment that, let's say you don't get any more, you can't put,
That's what I mean, if we go forward towards the presidential.
no, but you can't use poll books and this system at the same time?
Can't mix paper and electronic.
Why not?
That's the law, you have to make a choice.
That's my understanding also.
They can only use one system.
Correct.
You're either using
But we do have the poll books we could fall back
or we're
on.
using poll books.
Okay.
You can't, am I wrong?
No, you're
No,
right.
you're right. You-
So,
they're-
I don't think we can have, say, 84 books, 84 e-poll books, and we have those at 60 sites, and all the other sites have poll book paper.
Mr. Chairman, we got,
Yep.
this budget doesn't reflect the election we have in a couple days. We're set up for that election. I make a motion to remove the 130,000. Let's see how this election goes at the end of November. Let's come back and have a discussion.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion.
Karen, what does that do? What will that do to, does it negatively affect anything?
Well, it will affect next year, but...
But if we're dealing with it in November, I mean, we're just
Well,
saying,
it depends, I mean, how many years have you guys been red instead of black, so I guess it depends what you have available.
This doesn't have to do with current budgets, Karen. This has to do with there wasn't a process. And
There was
what-
a process that was previously followed by the election board. It's a process that has been followed for years.
Well, when you're purchasing $170,000 of voter equipment, you've got employees that have to use it, we have volunteers that have to use it, we have to fund it, there's commissioners, there's council, there's election board, there's voters registration. Nobody knew nothing till after the fact.
That's
Exactly.
not true.
Is it just, I mean,
You were at the meeting when we discussed it in the room up the third floor. And Katrina Spence was there and we talked about it. We made our first purchase there of 15.
Well, I can guarantee you, I was not in favor of it.
You're not on the board. It has to do with
Well-
the election decision. And we
That-
have
see,
signed,
that's-
can I finish, please?
Certainly.
We have signed contracts of $547,000 by J.J. Stankiewicz that never came before the council or the commissioners.
Okay, so let me ask, all right, I get it. It seems like emotions are flying here. So we've got, but back to the question. So we've got, the motion on the floor is to remove the $130,000 from that line item in the budget, the proposed budget for next year. Now, if that $130,000 was never addressed in November, you wouldn't be able to pay for the 69, or the remaining number from the 84, right? Because that's interpolated. So we have varying things that we have to deal with here. If in fact we are truly under contract for the 69, I don't want to drag this county kicking and screaming into litigation we can't win, but if they're not operating up to par, then that would be something the commissioners and the election board ought to be thinking about with respect to sending them back.
we're a few days away from election.
But yeah, so here we sit, just a few days away from the goal line. That's all I have to say. Go ahead, Sylvia.
I'd just like to comment that since the onset of these, and I know it's new equipment and you're working through the bugs, but we're talking about elections. And when the people vote, they want to make sure that their vote is counting. And that's my concern with this, that we've got problems and they're ongoing.
That has nothing to do with the voting or the ballot itself, Sylvia. It only has to do with signing in on a piece of paper. In the past, we've been off on our numbers too because people have signed in the wrong
Well,
area.
What will the additional that you've come in front of us and we denied, how many poll books will that pay for?
That's $49,000.
Yeah, the transfer, yeah.
$39,000.
That you've
It's
come
our
in front.
first payment. We have 3-year payments.
How much is it per poll book, Karen? Tell me again.
That's like $1,500, $1,800.
Jan?
Let me ask this question. I guess I just like, because I want to give the clerk and the election board some sense of direction here. Let me finish. So, I'd like to get a feel from the board. Let's just assume that the election with these e-poll books went fine on Tuesday. Let's assume that it went the way that the election board and the clerk and everybody hopes it does. Is this board still not inclined to approve additional funds for the remaining 51? Or is this board inclined to do that? I think maybe that would be a good question that the election board might want to know. Because when you go back, or as you address this to ES&S, they probably would like to know whether or not there's another 51 coming down the river, or whether we're talking about issues with what we've got and, we're not inclined to purchase any more. Go ahead, Bob.
Do we need to have the motion include the transfer to pay for the ones we have? Because we can't send them back now for this year's budget and get it off the table. Do they still have to pay for how many, 54?
Yeah, but we're here for, no, we're not going to deal with the transfer. I mean, we're here on their budget for next year. We're not.
Yeah, but I'm just throwing that out there because we're sort of stuck. We're gonna end up buying them now or buying them later. It really doesn't matter. They ain't taking them back. They've already used them.
Well, that remains to be seen, but I mean, we're here to talk about their proposed budget for next year. If, in fact, we want to address the transfer, we can address that at our next regular meeting.
I'm inclined to support it if it does the things that the clerk says it's going to do, and that is to make the elections more efficient and more cost-effective, absolutely. But let's go through, this election, and if everything goes right, I think that's fair, and then commit to it.
So Jim, are you telling me, or maybe you're not at this point, but back to my question. Let's assume that the election went off, or maybe you want to hold off on this comment, maybe you don't. But let's assume this election came off like gangbusters. Are you of the mindset then, going into the presidential year, that we're going to tell the clerk to things went fine, but set the 84 back in the corner, you don't have enough for the election for next year? Or are you of the mindset that you would be willing to say, instead of putting these in the corner, I would vote to give you another 51 to do the presidential election?
Yes, I mean, if this technology is playing a pivotal role in improving this election coming up here, absolutely, we should be. I think it'd be irresponsible not to commit to it if it's going to make the elections more cost-effective and more efficient to manage.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on that thought?
Can I?
Yes.
I'm Kevin Gazusek and Sunday Shone, and I work in the trenches with these poll books. We're doing the training and everything, which is the job of the Porter County Election Board, training the poll workers. We have had a host of problems since May. Email after email. ES&S has not been responsive. Smart updates that you click on in the mornings, pull the stuff out of the cloud. They're not working, and ES&S isn't emailing us, telling us they're not working, the girls that are working. I have ballots here that just printed out off these BOD printers that were purchased to save us money that are bad ballots, because they're missing the timing marks. These are ballots for this election. Ballot after ballot until the girls were taught how to do it. There's a host of problems since May of going into this election. We just got our election day data yesterday. Out of those 80 poll books that we have, 4 of them are no good. They have to go back.
But with the ballot, let me ask this, would the ballot on demand problem be an issue on election day? Or is that only because...
No, because those are free
right,
ballots.
Let me finish. So, because we don't have any centralized voting and it's pre-printed precinct...
But it's been said that we're saving money on ballots because we do these early ballots, and we're not. We're not saving money. We're not printing it. Therefore, when they go out on election day to the precinct, they won't be read.
There's a lot of problems. And maybe this would be a joint meeting, like you said, between the commissioners, ourselves, and all of you after this election. We get through it, it gets certified, and we can sit down and really decide how we're moving into this.
I have one more thing to say. When all is said and done, for the basic cost to purchase these things, we're at about $300,000, okay? It's not helping with your actual vote. It's just so they can electronically sign their name on a poll pad. We will need new voting equipment. That voting equipment that we originally purchased was close to $1 million. I think your money would best be spent on looking in 17 for 18 at new voting equipment, and that $300,000 and counting. And count is a money tip. Signature pads go bad, scanners go bad, we're gonna have to keep purchasing. And all we did was our cost for what this equipment is, was reams of paper, a paper poll book. And now we're gonna dump $300,000, and then in 17, we're gonna come and say we need $1 million for new voting equipment?
Well, let's do this. Okay, I understand all that. Let's do this. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. I guess I would echo both the clerk and Councilman Rivas's thoughts of having a joint meeting to discuss not only how this election went off on Tuesday, but how we do want to approach next year, because quite candidly, listen, let's just be reasonable here. We all want the election to run smoothly and, most efficiently, and we don't want there to be issues that discourage folks from voting. So, and next year's election is a large one, so we want to be on the same sheet of music. And we can talk about all that stuff. We can talk about the issues, the problems, the support, all those things that we've encountered through this dress rehearsal, for lack of a better term, and we can contemplate with the direction we want to go. Any other thoughts?
Dan, from my perspective, I'm not a poll book expert, and I'm not sure I know anything more. I'm not sure I have any more clarity after hearing the passion pleas on both sides saying they're the greatest thing in the world versus they're terrible. And so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage with it. I do know that ultimately embracing technology relative to voting is important, and whether we want to face it or address it or ultimately accept it, eventually we will. The contracts, and we've talked enough about the process and how we went through that process and how the contracts were signed and then signed again. To me, the uncertainty still remains. I'm not sure if the poll books are the right thing, but that's where, as a council, we do rely on an election board. We have an election board, a bipartisan election board, that theoretically they are the experts, and they are the ones that are going to investigate the best technology out there and the equipment that's going to, that's going to work. I think there's a process that they should go through, obviously, to make sure that the commissioners are involved and well aware of what's going on, the council's involved and well aware of what's going on, especially as we talk about an extensive expenditure. And that communication obviously was flawed throughout the process as well. It sounds like, and I tried to follow the numbers because it was pretty difficult to understand exactly how many poll books are out there. It sounds like currently we have 84, and if I got it right, we paid for 0.
15.
No, we have 84, paid for 15 last
Paid
year.
for 15.
We have 69 that we purchased that need to be paid for.
Okay, but at this $130,000 that we're talking about specifically to the motion, that takes care of us up until how many?
If you allow us to transfer the money that we have, plus the $10,000 we already have in that line item, that takes care of the first payment that was due this year. Then next year we have another $49,000 due. We were looking at buying the additional 51, and then we had looked at central counting.
How many of the 84 have we not paid for yet, which I get that 69, quick math. How much of a value is there to 69 of them? How much are they?
We have $1,800 including the past dues. But we're paying them on 3 payments. So it's not the full amount at one time, 3 years of payments.
And as far as the contracts are concerned, our impression is that we are under obligation, assuming they live up to their part of the agreement, for 84 of them.
Correct.
Okay. And we're not under contract, and Scott is not aware of a contract, and you folks, there's not a contract out there, a mysterious contract that has, where the county is committed to additional 51. And so it seems as if, and I think Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are under obligation to pay for those 84 that we currently have, by contract.
Assuming they live up to their end of it, yes.
Okay.
And do we know that until we've had this election to see how, that's why we have the motion?
Yeah, see, I'm overlapping 2 theories here. One is, based upon the contract that the commissioners approved, are we contractually obligated to pay for everything? How much of it are we contractually obligated to pay for? And then that amount, under contract, if they don't live up to what they were contractually supposed to do, is there some justiciable defense to sending those back and saying, we think ES&S, you breached? They didn't do what they were contractually obligated to do. So I'm thinking in terms of two overlapping theories here. And candidly, I don't have the answer to the second. I don't know. I mean, because I...
Whether they're fulfilling their end of the bargain, half would say yes and half would say no.
Yeah, that's why that's why I kind of want...
I guess the two issues, though, one's the equipment itself,
And
hardware.
one's a service. And so,
yeah.
exactly. So my question to our attorney was that, if there's a service flaw, is that sufficient enough? And it's not up to us. We just decide whether we give her the money. I would suspect that it's up to the election board and the commissioners to say, we think this contract was breached and therefore we want you to come get your garbage. Or we think this is the greatest thing in the world and we can't hardly wait to get the other 51. But,
I would have no problem if you wanted to hold off the $130,000 until next year. I mean, seriously, if you have reservations, that's the way we need to go. Because we need to work together as a county for the best for Porter County residents and voters.
There you go.
And that's what that motion was. Let's get together at the end of November after this election, and let's figure this out too. And Kathy brings up a good point. If we've got to buy some voting machines in the near future, next couple of years, we want to make sure the equipment that we're purchasing is going to be all compatible with any new equipment we may purchase. So let's get into this together.
Well, if we'd have just started out like this, we'd probably saved 30 minutes.
all right, so...
Probably take 3 or 4 meetings.
Yeah.
So,
Well, here we go.
and I think this, motion second on the floor, I'm going to call a question in a second here, but when we have that, I would suggest that this year, we have that joint meeting. When you guys are ready to be able to present to us your, thoughts on how the election went, and honestly look at some of the flaws and some of the successes, and then I would like to, in that conversation, talk about the projected purchase of future election equipment that we might need, not just e-poll books, and kind of plan for that and the time frame and all that kind of business. So, there's a motion. So your motion is to, what, Jeremy, take the 130 out and approve the on second reading, the election board budget with 130 down?
Yeah, I think that, Vicki, that's the final number with the 130 out, the 558,000?
With the idea you're not going to be purchasing anymore at this time.
At this time. We have no other contracts out there.
Till we meet.
We will not buy anything.
Fair enough. All right, so you have the new number in front of you, and I assume that was your motion, Jeremy?
Yes.
I assume the second concurs?
Yes.
Hearing none, all in favor of 558, 650, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you.
To all of us.
Right.
You know, it's depending on who wins.
Don't even start with that.
Whether the machine's working or not.
Don't even start that, man. Don't even go down that road. All right, thank you, guys. All right, so let's talk about tourism.
I thought we were going to take care of voters.
Oh, yeah, voters yet. That's right. We still had that hung over. Held over. Let's pull up voters. Pull up voters.
They want to deal with the races.
We're going to get rid of two people.
So, let's look at it. So we're making little changes in the salaries, obviously. And why don't you just kind of give us the thought real quick, Kathy?
Well, we took out the 2 additional deputies plus, which is $49,320.
Okay.
A savings there, plus their health and their benefits.
Yep.
And looked at taking some of that, and we haven't had that raise since 2008. As you know, we're voter registration, but we do all the elections.
So the bottom, all right, so here's the thing. This is the first of several that we're going to deal with tonight. With the same sort of thought in mind, which I like, by the way. We're lowering the overall budget, either through attrition or whatever it means, taking the number of employees down and addressing some of that money to raises of the remaining folks on the payroll. So, what's your thoughts on this, guys?
I have one point of order here.
Yes.
Because of the fact that the voters registration is not charged elections, and there will be some changes for voters registration, will not be handling a lot of the election process. We need to take that into consideration before it does adding additional dollars to that. And those decisions will be made after this election, and then will be discussed.
Do you have some thought, Karen, on, or you're not ready to, you haven't gotten through it all, but on what those changes will be? This is news to me, so I'm just trying to get my hand around
Well,
it.
first of all, Indiana Code specifically says that if anybody besides the election board or the clerk runs the election, there needs to be a resolution created and a unanimous order and approved by the election board unanimously. And that resolution is in effect until 10 days after the last clerk. As of my position, there has never been a resolution giving those duties, which are my duties, to voters registration.
I'd like to clarify that. Indiana Code states, I believe I gave you a copy, Mr. Rich, and you, Karen. Indiana Code states about the election board doing everything. CFA cores, candidate filings, everything. Ballot layout. Now, if the election board, and granted, they don't get paid much, $2,000 a year, and they all have jobs to our attorneys. In the 16 years I've been here, we've done elections. This county has enjoyed the elections that are put on here. Now, Indiana Code further goes on to state, and I don't know if you have that with you, Mr.
I do not have it with me.
That if the election board unanimously agrees that they cannot fulfill these duties, just like the legislative summary says that the election board must personally deliver these e-poll books to every polling location. It's in the legislative summary.
Okay, so let me just.
But they don't do it.
Yeah, let me just stop right there. So here's the thought.
The clerk can,
Let me finish, Kathy.
that's not how it goes.
Let me finish for a second. I just want to make sure that I understand.
Now we left on such a good note, like, 2 minutes.
Let me just make sure I understand. So your proposal is, the proposed budget in front of us is to cut 2 people out of the budget.
Correct.
And your thought is, Karen, that they don't need to cut those people out of the budget? Do they need them?
No, they will not be doing a lot of the election
So-
that they normally do, which will mean 30 days when they are doing the election, it won't be necessary.
So it almost sounds to me like you're okay with what they're saying. We're cutting people?
Like they're not going to be handling a lot of the election process.
So I guess,
That's why they're repeating that they take on these additional responsibilities, and that's why they're feeling,
your disagreement is, you're okay with them cutting 2 deputies? You're okay with that part, because that's what this does, is cutting.
because right now what happens is the state voters registration has taken over a lot of this. And EMP, as you know, as well as other entities, register people for voting. So it's not a manual labor intensity situation that is uploaded to the state voters registration. So the job duties that they had previously,
So it makes sense that they're cutting 2 people.
Mr. Raymond, what Ms. Martin just said, that the BMB doesn't automatically register.
But stop. So it's okay, so you're proposing a budget to cut 2 people, you're saying they won't need the 2 people, so it seems like we're okay.
So would this be completely unreasonable to expect because your 2 offices work together? Can we not sit down and talk about what the changes are going to be and what your opinion is on it, or what we can do to agree, for God's sake?
That's up to Mr. Jessen, and Indiana Code says if the election board can't do it, they vote unanimously to hire election deputy commissioners. That's where it ends. The clerk doesn't get to pick who she wants.
Okay,
They send a letter to the chairman. What I'm saying is...
We're getting off. No is the answer to your question, Mike. So the point is this. You're cutting your budget, you're cutting 2 people.
That's right.
You're saying they don't need as many people. They're proposing a budget says they don't need as many people. I'm not getting the problem.
There's a proposal in front of us.
Right.
You're saying you're gonna do something next year. Until that's in front of us, we have a budget.
Yeah.
that's fine.
But
There's no reorganization in front of us in this budget.
It's not their job duties that they're taking.
Yeah, but again, I don't know why we're fighting. She's saying, she's out, well, we're disagreeing. You're saying we won't need as many people, you're proposing a budget says you don't need as many people.
I guess what you really need is a job description to see if it falls within the election.
We hired an HR person. We'll get around that.
HR person.
Well,
I don't think we're disagreeing here.
yeah, there's a deeper problem here than that budget, and you all need to fix it. What I see, though, is a budget that's less than what it was last year.
Yes, sir.
With less employees. I don't know what else you want.
What's your pleasure with this budget?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second, further discussion?
Are we putting the raises in, or are we leaving them out until we're gonna address them later?
Well, let's address it now.
Specific, simple question. The two people, we're eliminating two positions. Are those positions vacant currently, or are there people that will, effective January, lose their jobs?
Well, one retired, so one of our part-time moved up, and the other one doesn't need to be filled. So we're eliminating the two positions. So there's just four. There's Sunday, myself, and then our chief deputy.
Does that answer your question, Mike? Any other, all right, now let's talk about, all right, since we're going to be, might as well just get right into the raises, because that's what we're going to be doing later on today.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. So, again, yes, they're cutting two people, and yes, they're allocating some of that money to raises for the remaining folks. That's what's happening. Now, we're going to see that in a couple more budgets,
And they're reorganized.
yeah, and so we're going to see, you know, from a department head's perspective, if they come to us and say, listen, we have this secretary that makes $30,000. We'd like to, through attrition or whatever, remove that position, save the general fund $20,000 plus benefits, and allocate the other $10,000 to remaining employees. If we say no, they could simply fill the secretarial spot. There is that. We could tell them no, and then what? You know, so we've encouraged these department heads and elected officials to look for ways to, A, help us on our health insurance numbers by bringing down the number of employees, and to try to find ways to reorganize and save their budgets. That's what they're doing.
I think we've established that over the last couple of years through our votes.
So, I mean, seems to make sense to me, but, hey.
Have a motion? Yeah, we have a motion and a second for the budget.
So the number is what, Vicki? 202,588?
Yes.
Down from 219,608? Right?
From this year, yes.
Yeah, Scott?
I don't think the original motion and second was on that number, just to clarify that.
Does the motion concur with 202,588? Whoever made that motion?
Yes.
And does the second concur? All right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Have a
Sorry
good
for
evening.
all that.
No, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Let's go to,
Liar.
yeah, let's go to tourism.
Oh, God.
I don't think it gets easier tonight, does it?
No.
There you go.
Where's the tourism budget? I've been through so many of these. What night was that under, the tourism?
Originally, but then it was changed.
Let's pull up what we have in front of us on tourism. Once you find it in your books, because I want to be able to talk about some numbers. What night would that be under, on our books? Anybody have any idea? Yeah, but it might have been, bear with me. We're going to take our time, we're going to do it right.
It was under general.
Where is it under, what date?
Well, it was on the 17th, I think we moved it, so we probably moved it to a new date.
Posted under, September 22nd is the last page.
Yep, there it is, September 22nd, last couple pages.
There we go.
You have it in front of you?
Yep.
Okay, when we last left this budget, it was fairly smooth sailing. I say that tongue in cheek, it wasn't. I would like to suggest that, one or two other thoughts, where we currently have $89,100 to, Expo Parks Memorial and Outpost Museum, I'd like to take that number to $150,000. That's my suggestion, take it or leave it. I would think that, in my way of thinking, with the parks, and this is going to require agreement between the commissioners and the tourism board, I believe. Scott, you can correct me on that.
Nope, that is correct. They do them every year.
And,
January, February.
what I would suggest is that the parks get what they would have gotten under the $89,100, and we can and the museum's pretty flush right now. The difference would be split between the Memorial Opera House and the Expo. That's my suggestion. Any other suggestions?
What was your number again, Dan, from what to what?
89.1 to 150. But I'm open to discussing, that was just what I was thinking, and I don't,
Well, I would concur with most of your suggestion, except the remaining be split between the three venues, because the museum is under capital improvement. A lot of their things are in storage, they're trying to upgrade a
I agree with
building.
Karen. That's
Well,
a
and
bad situation over there.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, except for I think that the Museum Foundation has a pretty large, cash holding, I think.
It's not that large, Dan.
No, I've talked to them, no, they don't.
Oh, I think you're wrong, actually.
I don't think I am.
No, I think you are. But, I think it's more than you think. But that's okay, I don't have a problem with the museum, I just didn't think they needed it. You guys think they do, I'm open to that.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
So we're gonna split it 4 ways.
3 ways.
Is that your motion?
3 ways?
So you take the parks, but currently under your agreement, the parks get how much, 60% or 40?
40.
So they would get 40% of 89,100, the remaining to be split between the other 3 venues. Does that make sense?
The other 3 things, right?
5, 6.
I'd like to hear from the
Yeah,
tourism.
I'm just giving you my thoughts, I mean, so it's 35,640 to the parks, the rest remaining split between the remaining 3 venues. Go ahead.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Are you talking about doing this every year? And how do I know what you tell me this year is gonna happen differently?
Miss, can you speak up, I think?
Are you gonna do this every year? And how do I know, no matter what you guarantee me today, based upon the composition of the council in 4 years, that I'm not gonna be back in this position? And then, so what motivation is there for the tourism board to be fiscally solvent and to try to maintain a building that we're responsible for with air conditioners that are rapidly dropping offline, and with renovations that we're planning to make to our facility for the benefit of the council? That's just one thought. Secondly, I'm not sure legally that this is even appropriate. We've had issues for a long time as to whether or not we can support the venues, and nobody has supported the venues. I spent 2 years working on putting all of the venues under our website and going to all this trouble to do that, and in 1 week, a former commissioner just decided she was going to provide a countywide website, and then they were all gone.
Maybe that's
So-
why she's a former.
Well, I'm just saying, we're spending 2 years setting up a project to benefit the venues, and we're gonna assume that cost to do that through our board, and in 1 day, the whole thing's offline and done. So it's a little frustrating for us to sit here with a fund that we have saved the money and created to provide for when we don't get taxed, because we're not covered under the general fund. If we have a financial problem, we don't come down here and say, hey, can you float us some more money? We have to cover all of our expenses, and we've been getting back payments for the last 3 years, and we've provided you all this information. Those payments are gone. And I'm not saying any of this because I don't support the venues, because I do. I look for ways to benefit the
I understand that. Let's take this in steps then. One is this a one-time, or we're only talking about next year's budget right now?
Well, I know.
So let me finish. So that's what's in front of us right now, and that's what we're talking about. And I assume, and I'm not sure, but I think you're saying, can you trust us? I think that's what you're saying.
Perhaps.
First of all, you're our appointment to the board, so I would hope you do.
Currently.
I mean, I can almost get, that's interesting. So I hope you trust us, but, and listen, this isn't any other, for me, I don't know anybody else's motive, I don't care. I mean,
That's hard telling,
I happen to know that our local venues could use some assistance,
Right.
even if it's a one-time thing, just a shot in the arm. I also know that if they're used properly, and I think you guys have even indicated, if they're, it could help tourism, it could. You guys could have a relationship that's mutually beneficial. So, two things. One is, when I saw your budget, you're giving to local venues, that's great. I understand the history of that, I do. I understand the discussion, I understand the argument, I understand all that stuff. I know what got us here. And when I looked at your budget, and I heard that you had a fairly large rainy day buildup, which is commendable, that's great, there's nothing wrong with that. It seemed a harmless area where we could interpolate into a couple of those venues a little bit of revenue, at least for the next year. That was my thinking. I don't speak for the rest of the board, but that's where I'm at.
How much is in that?
Well, what we're doing is taking...
600,000?
We provided you a report that breaks down, because we have different stability funds, and so, we have a fund just specifically for capital improvements of the building that we do not touch, that's specifically for, we're losing air conditioning units right now.
Could you answer the question, please? How much money is in the fund?
We have it in there as $800,000, which is...
Okay, so we're talking less than 10% of your cushion for these venues, one time. And that seems to be a point of discourse between these two boards. Do we need a motion on this? Do we need a motion on this?
Yeah, there's no...
I'll make a motion on the 150, split the way we agree on, and...
Second.
Move on.
What will that, okay. So have you had discussions with the tourism board on this, I assume?
Well, there's been some discussion.
I assume they've heard?
Yes.
Okay. Listen, we're not asking for $889,000. I get it. I understand you want to preserve your rainy day fund for these capital projects that are coming up, and we want you to be able to maintain your facility and do the kinds of things you want to do, which is why I was trying to find a number that wouldn't shock the conscience of your board. I know that fundamentally a couple of them wouldn't want to give any of the money. But the fact of the matter is, it is what it is, and we have to approve this budget, and that's kind of where we're at.
And as president of the board, I have to raise my
I understood.
concerns, and I did.
Understood.
Having done that, it's the will of the council.
So there's a motion, well, if we raise that number to 150, what's that take their budget to, Vicki?
$1,391,690.
Is that your motion?
Yep.
Mr. Poprod, is that the second?
Yes.
Can I ask one question on the backing up to the salaries? Did we switch those two salaries that I brought up the last time? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, let's clarify that question.
Yes.
Yes?
I thought we did.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I knew we discussed it.
I mean, do you all feel, sitting here listening to, Dan's reasoning or motion and other comments, I personally think it's a wonderful idea to take I believe Councilman Poprod pointed out, less than 10% of the totality of what you have built up at this point, and assist those venues that are directly in association to the tourism here in this county. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Philosophically, I'm not opposed to it.
I think it's more of an issue that, okay, there's a board, tourism board, and then there's the innkeepers who pay the tax.
Right.
And this probably did come out of left field. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a one-time shot in the arm to our local venues. It's not to raid the scrimping and the saving you've done, because, your building is older, and it's going to experience problems. And I commend you for having the quote-unquote rainy day fund and bring it to the healthy level that it is.
Okay, with all that having been said, all in favor of the,
Dan?
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we just, one last time?
Yes.
What was the parks get the same amount? Just say that one more time.
Parks gets 40% of $89,100.
Right. Remainder to be split between, the difference to be split three ways between the remaining venues.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that clarification in mind, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful evening.
See you soon, Rich. It's always a pleasure. Do we want to talk any more about this pictometry?
Yes.
Then let's talk about this pictometry.
I mean, we have a bill sitting out there for, what, 69,000 plus, that's more than 90 days old, due to be paid, and we need to address how we want to pay it.
What's the cost of pictometry a year?
Where's our assessor?
Come on, up here, John.
Slow down.
Come on. So who's using, all right, so let's think about this. Let's just talk about the use of pictometry.
Pictometry.
Let's talk about how pictometry has been used and how we anticipate it being used. And I don't want to know the specifics of all that stuff unless anybody else does. Your eyes will blaze back and then we'll just, that'll be it. But let me finish. So what percentage of pictometry do we anticipate each department
Is Miss Mary back there?
using?
No, that's what I was gonna say too, when he's done, yeah.
So,
She might wanna.
I call it.
the Portage Township,
Yeah.
Anybody that uses pictometry, any department, come on up here.
That's what I was gonna allude to, that she uses it just as well.
So, right now, what's the cost, the overall cost of pictometry? I don't care who answers, somebody.
You'd have to, I don't see, no, hopefully the same.
It's about $80,000 a year.
So $80,000 a year is the cost. Now, how much is each department using pictometry? What percentage? Right now?
Yeah, the assessor's probably 85%.
So the assessor is about 85%. Now, when you say the assessor, you mean you or both?
Yeah, combined.
Combined. All right. 85%. Who uses the rest?
We have about 13 departments, Porter County Airport, Building Department,
Okay.
and cities and towns, Chesterton, Portage.
Does auditor use it at all? Does
No, we didn't have auditor on the list recently.
planning, nobody like that?
Planning is part of the building
In our
department.
office, we have one computer that has access to it, and we don't use it as part of our normal day-to-day operations.
Prosecutor's office, I believe, the sheriff.
Prosecutor uses it a little bit, the sheriff uses it a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm not lying here, I know he's sitting behind me, so.
He's not in uniform there.
Okay.
So, let's just go down the line. In your thinking, John, who and where should who should pay this pictometry?
We have about half of it, we have about 40 to 50,000 that we can throw starting next year, after working to undo some of the contracts that are in place for some prior projects that we were doing,
So when you say next year, you're talking about the budget we're talking about for 2016?
Yes.
All right. So you're thinking you could interpolate into that pictometry cost about half?
Correct, yes.
And then do you have anything in your budget at all?
She's in my half, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
No, but I just gave back the first of the year.
yeah, so you don't have any,
You didn't even have to walk up here.
I know. Well, I support the project. I mean, it is very useful, especially since reassessment is ongoing and in our daily work. So I like it, and I hope to keep it.
I had made the anticipation that with reducing my number of staff based on that we had pictometry, I made the assumption that we would have pictometry into the future, which is probably the wrong assumption to make. Doesn't help us right now, but by reducing staff, we were hoping to have this tool in the future because it does eliminate the need for desks.
So that brings me to my next, so moving forward, currently you've been using, your offices have been using about 85% of the pictometry usage. Do you anticipate that being the same in the future, or do you anticipate other departments using it more?
I think I see them, especially if we could overlay this with our current GIS, which proper I kind of threw out there. My wheels started spinning, but didn't work out so well because the GIS and the building department has another idea, so I just wanted to stay out of it. But I do believe that there will be more usage from other departments. Everybody loves it. That we've had several group meetings with the users, and everything's positive, and everybody would like to. Town of Chesterton contacts me quite often to say, hey, are we going to have it in the future? But I don't know how to put the vehicle together for the funding.
You can tell them, yes, we are. We're going to have it. It is the future.
And I would think that if there's a way to do it, that they could kick in a portion of the cost, but I don't,
Okay, so what are your thoughts with this you've heard, from the auditor's perspective, where do you think this money should come from?
Dan?
It's two separate systems. We use the ARC reader, which is a component of
Okay.
GIS.
Let me get back to my question. Where do you think the money should come from?
I don't think that's for me to say, because it's not.
Thanks. Bob?
Is this generally used for reassessment? You said it's an ongoing project. Should this money come from your reassessment fund? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And just get this over, we're not gonna send a bill to town of Chesterton.
Right.
We're not gonna send a bill to the sheriff. He's the principal user, by far a vast majority of it. He should pay for it, and I was thinking reassessment, outside the general fund, it's for reassessment.
What's in his how's your reassessment fund running?
Right.
It's not real healthy, but like I said, what was gonna get creative, eliminating some contracts and things like that to clear the table and have the funding moving forward.
But when you got rid of some people, what do we do with that money? Do we give raises out? Do we reorganize and give raises?
We did some reorganization, but I believe that the majority, in the hundreds of thousands, went back to the budget, the general fund.
You're saying you got rid of some people, some desks, in anticipation of technology and using this, but you didn't identify a source to cover that technology, but you
We
gave
had
the
the
raises
non-reverting
out?
fund at the time, and that was before the $100,000 cap that the legislation passed. We had a plan, and I brought that to both the commissioners and the council. I followed what we were supposed to do, but I didn't...
Right, I mean, and the board needs to understand that. He followed proper protocol in that he went to the Board of Commissioners. The original plan was, the monies were going to come out of the non-reverting fund. So, let's keep that in mind as we move forward and not, his office does use about 50 or 60% of it, but...
No, I'm not talking about the non-reverting fund, I'm talking about his reassessment fund.
I understand that, but...
Which has...
Yeah, I know, but the original plan was for it to come out of non-reverting.
Yeah, but the original plan's off the table, so let's talk about now.
And it was supposed to be a tool to increase the funds in non-reverting, per the prior auditor, was supposed to...
But I thought we always knew that non-reverting was never gonna be a forever funding
Right.
source. So,
And legislation changed.
Okay, so let's get back to so your reassessment, you don't think it's running as strong as you would hoped? Is that what we're talking about here, or are you feeling...
I want to let you know about the reassessment fund. John and I have to share that reassessment fund. So there might be changes in my reassessment fund come 1 year where I would need a little bit more.
What do you
getting more?
What do you use those funds for?
For my part-timer right now and for equipment like cameras and
How much is
for...
the balance?
So right now,
What's the balance
I don't mean to cut, one at a time. So we started off in the assessor's reassessment fund, we started off at 373 and we're at 311 now, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that what we're looking at? So it's running a little bit, under radar, but not exponentially.
It'll be, according to Gene, it'll be used up mostly. And we have to save some aside because we have the reassessment project ongoing where we have a land order. I don't want to take a lot of your time. But there are major projects ahead in the years ahead that it will cost. This fund here, if I understand it right, it builds up, it accumulates over time. Am I saying that right, Vicki?
Yes.
So we are trying to save some in there so that we can make major purchases for resetting the land calculations for the entire county with probably a $150,000 project, which is what it cost us the last time around 4 years ago. So that's kind of a tricky number there.
So, yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
I mean, 85% is $68,000, I think. If you're using it 85% of the time, you should pay that share. And the rest to go to the commitment, I think maybe should come out of the non-reverting fund then, for all the other departments.
Can you do that?
We'll figure that out. I mean, we're gonna have to apparently, so.
Okay. And Vicki, can you take the remaining balance out of the non-reverting fund?
Scott, you have a question?
Are we just talking about next year's budget right now?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the balance.
Yeah, I was gonna take care of next year, by being creative. It was the $69,000 that was, I have no idea why that check was never cut. I don't
So,
know.
okay, so we have two issues here. You're saying the $69,000 we have to deal with this year.
Correct.
And then, see, I'm talking about next year since we're here for the budget.
Correct.
But if there's a question about Yeah, well, let's stick with next year's budget. I like his idea, we'll take 85% out of your reassessment, the remaining 15% out of the non-reverting fund, since someone's gotta pay it.
Arrangements for the future.
Yeah, and then, as far as the 69,000, you know, it's not, you guys, where do you guys wanna pay it from?
Can I,
So it's an outstanding bill, where are you gonna pay it from? What's the proposal here?
When was that bill first submitted?
I believe, back prior to, Vicki being elected, so I'd say before last fall. The last time we came in here, I believe there was a list approved, for the non-reverting fund that budget that was approved. I just,
What's in your non-reverting fund right now,
I
Vicki?
believe it was in there.
I believe it was too. correct?
What's in your non-reverting fund right now, Vicki?
The balance is about 533, however, as we've talked about before, that's a false balance, because under the new state law, I have to return
Right.
money that was collected this year to the general fund, and I intend to fully comply with the law.
Okay, well then, which is always a good thing
It will be
for an elected official. Well done on that, well done. Okay, but now, let me finish, but that brings me to an interesting thought. When you and I talked about what we thought the anticipated carryover for next year would be to get us to the end of next year, we talked about the were you interpolating into your money this?
No.
Okay.
The reason why is because I'd like to try to be very conservative with the revenue projections for the general fund.
Okay.
This will provide a nice cushion, because we may need it.
Good, yes, Bob?
You have to revert anything over 100,000 back to the general fund unless it's appropriated.
Net of refunds and net of contractual costs related to homestead.
Well, is pictometry used in homestead exemption?
no, she don't use it.
She uses it 15% of the time for something.
Do you? Do you use it 15%?
No, we have a computer that has access to it.
I'm just trying to get this year's bill paid, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I suggest to the board that what we simply do is we have it taken out of what the original plan was, and those are the conditions that the commissioners agreed to sign the contract under, and that is to take it out of non-reverting for the last time, and then next year we'll start with the new plan.
So come back to us at our regular meeting with some request for the 69,000 from somewhere, and that sounds like a pretty good idea. But now, as far as next year's budget's concerned, we take 85% of the 80,000 out of reassessment, remainder out of non-reverting? No?
Well,
Next year.
we're working on next year's budget.
Where are we gonna get it from?
Yeah, give me a...
John, did you not say you had a plan for next year's?
Well, Mr. Paparad, I believe that there's some discussion with the planning department to reorganize the GIS. I'm thinking that this pictometry might fall into that category. I've talked to Mr. Thompson, and I don't know if he's here tonight, but I think there's a chance we can get some of this funding through what you guys have talked about.
And so we can adjust that.
Yeah, we'll adjust it.
We'll adjust it as we address that, yeah.
I just wonder if we shouldn't take it all out, and then in January, when the auditor, him and Thompson get together and figure out who's gonna pay for GIS, and we pool the money and see where it's all coming from.
And if I walk in there as a contractor or whatever, I have to pay for that information, correct?
No, we're not, there's a certain amount that's released to the public, but not the internal tools, the measuring tools and things like that, because they don't want it being used for rough estimates for free and things like that, so.
Sylvia, what would you...
Well,
what would
no,
you-
I'm hearing more now.
Okay.
That's making sense. It's gonna be a one-time
Right.
tap into the non-reverting?
You understand, John, what we're suggesting?
No?
This year.
You're
to get the
saying
bill
this year.
paid, to get the
Yeah,
bill
don't compare, we're not talking about the $69,000 bill.
Talking about next year.
Talking about next year's budget. So, all right, well, what do we
We
do?
do it out, and in January, they come back to us with their plan on how to pay for pictometry. Who shares what cost?
How about February?
Okay, February, okay.
We can delay, I mean, we can...
I mean, if we're in the building a year, so what's the
We have
difference?
a spring flight schedule, we can delay that to fall, it's kind of another fallback plan, we can buy ourselves 6 months before we have to make the
So
payment.
when you say zero it out, you're saying don't budget for pictometry at all?
No, we'll do it next year, after they figure out who's paying for what.
As long as we understand, I don't want to come back and say we're going to take it out of a general fund, when we haven't budgeted for it.
You said, didn't you say, John, that you would?
Okay, I don't care, it's 6 one, half dozen the other, fine, done.
I'm getting a lot of, they've been very patient on the 69,000. That
Oh,
was
I
my-
totally agree.
We'll address that at our regular meeting, we'll get it, we'll get it dealt
That's
with.
part of your house by now.
We'll get it dealt with, yeah, we'll come at our next meeting and approve whatever, we need to do to get that paid.
Where was that, you didn't have that in the budget, did you, the pictometry?
I don't believe so. I mean,
There's nothing
it's
we're
just
zeroing
our
out.
contractual line right now, I mean, it's there, it's just not our photometry.
Okay. So we get lowered the contractual by 80,000? Is that what I'm looking at on 3950?
No, let's not do that.
Well, it's what it costs.
Let me ask, well, let's know, the approved budget from last year was 60,000 contractual.
Yes.
You proposed 100,250, was that extra 40,000 in anticipation of pictometry, or did you have other reasons for raising your contractual?
We have other, as time goes on, we have other reasons to readjust contractual. I don't believe we're raising our bottom line necessarily, as far as I know.
Well, I think,
We're shifting things around.
Right, yeah.
So we don't have to come get transfers and things like that.
You don't want to come in front of us?
So,
Did you?
all right, so you understand what he's talking about, what do you guys want to do?
I'll make the motion on 406, 896, as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any discussion?
Well, we're gonna double back around. You had something else, I know. Go ahead. Lay it on.
You know what it is?
I do. No, you go ahead.
I believe that attorney was stripped out, and I'm hoping that we can get that back because we were running low.
That was out of your general fund budget, or?
Yes, general fund.
Yeah, so let's go back to that. We might as well get to that. We reduced his attorney, line item, and he has some concerns with that because he's got some things coming up that he thinks are going to, and it makes sense to me, require some legal work. And John, do you want to just kind of give us an idea? Some of that, you don't have to give us specifics, but, you know.
Just generally revolves around hospital, future hospital type of things.
Imagine that.
So
are you thinking the full 30,000, or you like
Yes.
15?
I believe it'll be a similar year to what it was this year, and we are low on attorney funds, quite low, actually. Gonna have to wait till after Christmas.
what's your motion, Jim?
To reinstate the original amount.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I don't know if you can, off the top of your head.
Sure.
How much have you spent in attorney fees battling the hospital?
Good point.
But in 6 figures, I guess, I don't know. But most of my attorney budget would probably go towards that.
So,
That's a shame.
It is.
There's a motion and a second on the floor, which takes the number back up to 726,351. Any discussion on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nice. All right, so that's some of that.
Okay.
And we're gonna get to third reading in a minute, but I think we're done with that. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we really didn't do much on pictometry other than say we're gonna deal with it next year. Let's talk a little bit about, well, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back.
I'll use the restroom.
No, you guys can't leave, it's us.
Sorry, Mr. Gallo.
That's been seated.
Yeah, I don't know why they're all rushing off.
Get that stuff.
numbers Monday.
Who are we missing? Where's Mike?
He's right there in the back.
Okay. So Vicki, you were kind enough to keep track of raised requests that were sort of out of the norm. Why don't we attack some of those, for lack of a better term? One, I know, is Judge Story's court had come and made a proposal to reduce their overall budget through attrition and reallocate a portion of that salary and returning the remainder to the general fund. I think that is in front of you. And I think that Judge Story indicated that he has, at least he indicated to me, that he wanted to ensure that his staff, remaining staff, could take up the mantle of the additional responsibilities, and so he's had this vacant since July, and they've done a great job doing that. So he's comfortable making this suggestion that he can do without the secretary and allocate those responsibilities to the remainder. What's your pleasure with this one?
Move. Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Reduces his general fund budget about $15,000, give or take, and some change.
And that went back to the general fund?
Yes.
Yeah, that would go back to the general fund. So his new number would be, I can get that on the screen. $133,669, is that correct? Down from $144,869. So is that the motion second, I assume?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor of this proposed budget signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Show that back, that, you know, if you haven't already, Vicki, give us that credit back of 14.5.
It's already been tabulated.
All right. Okay, so that takes care of that one. What other ones do we have? Health Department, bring the Health Department up. This is a non-general fund budget, however, the Health Department's here. We've got some proposed increases in front of you. I think we have some nurses getting some raises. I'm trying to keep track of all this, so bear with me. So your proposal is to take well, give us your proposal.
Well, we looked at the nurses that we have, and over the years, we've tried to come before the council and bring them up to parity, so they're not handpicked and taken away, and we can keep our experienced nurses. We did a proposal, we had a discussion with Mr. Witt, and we proposed a 7 to 10% increase in each of the nurses' budget or salary.
Can your, I think we already talked about this, but just for the group, can your budget sustain this increase?
Can our fund?
What you're proposing is not what you turned in on the 144, this is something new.
Well, this is the, yeah, because I told them to propose their last year's budget and give any increases separately, and that's what we're talking about here.
Okay, well, we'll need to calculate that. You get a share of the levies, you get your tax rate.
Right.
A little over $30,000.
I'm sorry?
I think it's a little over $30,000.
Well, when we calculated, just assuming across-the-board raises, that was within that range, so you should be fine.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? What's the new number then? Do we even know it?
Right, I don't have your numbers.
Do you have those with you, Connie?
I just added
Yeah, show her what you've done, and maybe we can back that number in. We can. You had some other comments, so go ahead, Ross, she's doing that.
She is in that range. We were contemplating for the rest of the staff 5%. I don't know if that's... if that's feasible.
I don't know. Connie, where's the raises in here?
They're not in there yet, she's putting them in. She's putting them in there. I'm telling her to put them in now.
And the motion is for the $1,000?
How we gonna know what we're voting on?
No, she's putting them in now.
Yeah, she's.
We're not voting until we get the number.
10% increase?
I thought you said 7.
But she said
That
that.
is 10. What I calculated was 10.
But their levy and...
Nurses have never gotten
There
a
to
merit
sustain.
raise. It's all-
Let her put in the increase for the nurses that's being proposed, and then I just want to make sure, since this is a non-general fund budget, my concern is that it is able to sustain itself. And I know you've had some nurses leave, obviously there's areas elsewhere that a nurse can make more money than we pay here, and so I understand that.
They all have their bachelor's degrees.
Yes, they do.
So, and we haven't given them a raise, so, and again, since this is a non-general fund raise, and as long as it's self-sustainable,
Do we get rid of that other PHN, the one that's making 41,206? If you want all health nurses going up to 46?
How come this wasn't done?
See, right now we have 4 at 42,206 and 1 at 41,204.
don't vote no, vote no.
What?
What are we thinking here? 3%?
They're just gonna come back, there's room in there, they've already done it.
What?
That department's squared away, man. 40,000. It wouldn't come up there if they didn't have it. 1%.
Are we good on this, or do we need a little time? You want to double back on this one, Vicki, or?
Okay.
4 at 46,206 and 1 at 41.
Yeah. She said she was prepared for it.
Now we just done 144, so the new salaries is on the column way over on the right. And so it jumps to 901,308.
So their overall budget, what's the projected revenue for their overall budget for 2016, the revenue?
Oh, the revenue. Okay, could you call it the, revenue?
Scott, did you have a question?
No.
Good, befuddled.
Comment?
Yeah, because we're non-general.
Befuddled without a question.
That's true. That happens a lot.
I don't think they need to go that high.
We don't know.
I guess my question was, I thought she said it was a $30,000 increase, and the question was, could the fund withstand that?
Yes.
Yes.
That looks more like an $80,000 increase to me.
Right.
So, I'm not sure an I just didn't, the numbers didn't seem to drive.
Oh, I understand.
Which is it?
Thus, we had the befuddlement.
Correct.
Is it 30 or is it 80?
Looks like it's 80.
That's a lot.
But again, I just want to know if the fund can sustain that. That's all I want to know.
Why does it take so long?
I think when I was doing the budget projections, I tried to up you 100,000 to be overly
Cautious.
Keep in mind, they're competing with the whole levy, and so this now turns into where we're going to have to look at all the revenue projections. So it'll be close.
Well, we probably ought to have a pretty good idea on that before we, when you say it's going to be close, you're the auditor, so tell me if you think...
We can increase their levy and decrease the general fund fund.
That's not what we're going to do, yeah, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that, so So what would you suggest?
I thought their budget was as what was before you, so this is the first time that I saw it, so,
Well, maybe we just need a few minutes.
we can submit it and see where it goes. I mean, I think I put in $100,000 cushion for you, and if this is 80,000, this should be within that. I mean, this is within that.
Okay, so, what do you want to do here?
Well,
I'd like to know it was sustainable.
I'm comfortable with the auditor's assessment that when she wrote up the numbers, that she put in 100,000 or more a cushion, and we're asking for an $80,000 difference. And that 100,000, Vicki, probably was a conservative figure, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. You're not making me feel any better.
Bob?
Keith is advocating 5% for the other employees in the health department.
Yeah,
I'm more inclined to go to 5% for everybody if they want to raise, rather than 10% for the nurses, which of course, hopefully I'll never get down there to need them. They'll stick me with pins. But 5% across the board, that's my opinion. 10% for the nurses.
Let's give you the Hobson's choice here. What would you, if you were faced with the proposal of getting the nurse increases, this is an incredibly unfair question, and then we just deal with the rest of the employees as we deal with the county generally, or what Bob is suggesting?
I know what the nurse's workload is.
And I know what the nurses would probably say.
I do, but, and I know that we have a lot of hardworking people in our office, but I feel like
Okay.
it is fair and appropriate. I don't want to see the other people in our office not get any sort of raise.
Well, we'll address them with the rest of the county employees.
Mr. Whitten?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
The 144 we were looking at was incorrect.
Excellent.
The 2015 144 total salary was $870,122. Their proposed is $901,308. Now we are magically back at that $31,000. That's why the total down at the bottom is about $30,000.
Okay, so we're back.
It's 30.
It's 30, okay. So we're good?
Really confused.
So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that we interpolate into this 144 the proposed increase request for the nurses, and we'll deal with the rest of the staff with the county employee raises, and leave it at that. That's my suggestion. No one will like it, but that's what it...
I'll make that too. I'll retract my motion and make that my new motion.
My second will follow that.
All right, so the motion is second. So what would that number be then, Vicki? 1634988?
Yes.
And we're talking, it's about a 10% raise.
No.
Some 7, some 10. Isn't that what you came up with? It's just
7 to 10.
7 to 10.
I calculated for that 31,000 with a 10% for every full-time.
To bring them in.
for every nurse, for every full-time nurse.
We're talking 7 to 10%.
That's correct.
Do we know, is it more 10 than 7, or how is it?
The $31,000 that we were just talking about is giving them a 10% raise, each one of them.
Okay, so we're not talking about 7%, we're talking about a 10% raise.
Yes. So, but the increase is, it takes us up about $30,000 on the overall budget.
And are we doing? I'm not focusing on that, I'm focusing on a 10% raise.
Huh?
I'm not focusing on the dollar amount, I'm focusing on a 10% raise because he has money outside the general fund.
So, go on with that, Bob.
Well, what, do you think all these large men sitting here are not gonna have the same argument because they have highway money and it's outside the general fund? And we're gonna tell them no when they come up here in a few minutes? I'm assuming that's why you guys are all here. They're gonna have a legitimate argument, it's outside the general fund, I want a 10% raise. And I'm not gonna say the measures do more than the highway or vice versa, I'm not gonna get into that. But they're gonna make the same argument here in about, 20 minutes.
Sounds like you just made it for them.
I don't know, that's my wife starting to know where the hell I'm at.
Well, turn it on. Turn it on.
We'll listen to their department head, and he will or he won't tell us that there's room in there with their current fee structure.
They'll make room. they'll rearrange the deck, they'll find it. If we told these guys out here, you find a 10% raise for everybody, I guarantee you, he'll find it tomorrow morning.
And
That's all I'm saying.
And my hat's off to Mr. James if he can do that.
Okay? The law's okay with that, I'm just saying, we're gonna open a can of worms.
I'm just dealing with one situation.
So what
at a
you're
time.
suggesting, Bob, what you're suggesting?
Keep advocating 5% for the rest of his staff. If they wanna do something, I would go with 5%, I'm gonna vote no on 10%, just so we're clear on that.
So you would be okay with 5% across the board?
You know, Bob does bring up a good point.
Well, yeah, but I'm gonna hear Sylvia's comments. Go ahead, Sylvia.
And I also know that there is a tremendous nursing shortage, and that some of the nurses have left for better positions. I just, pardon?
Much higher.
I know that. We've got a solid crew there. I'm certainly, they do their work very professionally, just by being nurses, they're professionals.
Yes.
But I'm willing to go along with what the others feel.
Well, I'm basing it
I think
on,
you deserve it.
I'm basing it on what I'm seeing in the private sector. I'm also basing it on that those positions are college degreed and they're state certified.
Absolutely.
And they have to have so much training mandatory every year.
Jim, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I disagree with the 10% raise right out of the chute. Maybe 5 and 5, and see how the fund goes. 5 come back next year. I'm just talking about a 10% raise right out of the gun here. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about who it is. I don't care if it's the nurses or if it's the highway guys. I'm talking about a 10% raise right out of the chute here. Then we're gonna tell the rest of the county employees in the general fund, you're not getting a 10% raise. The only reason we're talking about this is because they have money outside the general fund. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Bob, I understand that, but at the same time, as this board, just 2 days ago, give a $12,000 raise to the director of the animal shelter. Well, that was more than a 10% raise. All right.
And it was a situation of slicing an employee out of the budget too,
So.
and sharing duties.
But I gotta echo what the auditor said, they're gonna start creeping back into the general fund with their levy. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I just wanna make sure that doesn't happen. Are we confident about that, Vicki?
If I ever get sick, I gotta go to Michigan City.
Are you confident that it won't hurt the levy?
Well, if you can get there with the highways and the litter.
I got the state plan.
That's interesting.
Probably
Yeah,
not.
when I put together the revenue and
I'm just
all
guessing.
of that on my big spreadsheet, I've tried to project conservatively on revenues, and yes, it's gonna eat into the levy, absolutely.
It will.
But is there enough in there for all the different funds to share? That's the main question. It's up to you what the raises are going to be. But if we're in this parameter, we should be fine.
Keith, did you have something else to say?
Could you go 7 and 5?
What do you mean?
7% for the nurses and 5 for the rest of the staff?
But
That would even be a harder sell.
correct me if I'm wrong, you had it varying because you were trying to bring all the nurses.
Just looking at all of them and the years of experience that they have at our office, that's why I looked at, we only have one that's really a fairly new one. And if you want to look at a 7% for her, that would probably be more fair than if you wanted for her there, but the rest of them.
Connie, each and every year, we've had a discussion about how underpaid our nurses are and how we've been losing nurses left and right, not necessarily for a better job, but a better paid job. And I think we need to just leave it be nurses, and then with the rest of the employees, whatever we're able to do for raises.
I agree with Councilman Conover. I think that's smart. Again, we're basing it on their education, and their state certification, and the amount of training they're expected to have each year.
Okay, so, any other discussion?
What are we doing 10% then? Is that the motion?
Yeah, but what are we doing with,
I'm just
I
asking.
think the number is 1634988, I don't care what you call it, Bob, but
We'll have to justify them first.
Just for this budget.
So the new number is $1,640,712. Just the raises for the nurse.
Right.
Not the other piece.
Right.
And you're certain this is gonna dig into the county's levy, huh?
Well, all these funds you get property tax support, we all share in the levy, yes, that's true.
does that answer your question?
No.
He's wondering how increasing their budget, even though it's a non-general fund budget, it does impact the levy. How will that impact the other budgets?
Well, that's why I was suggesting going no more than 37.3 on the general fund. With your budget, I built in a cushion, you're within that cushion. I can't give you the exact numbers because that's on
And that's-
the other part of, that's on the financing side that we have to submit to the state, that I have to try to be prepared to tell the state why you're doing it.
Scott?
I think the short answer is, to the best of her knowledge, she doesn't think this raise would impact our general fund number that we're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, she said that about half a dozen times.
Thank you for clarity, Jim.
what are we doing with,
Okay, so any other thoughts on this?
You know, I have to, I've been, and this is kind of a general sort of topic and conversation. I've been reviewing budgets and wages for almost 30 years in the private and public sector. And I find the discussion fascinating. I think as we start talking about what I would view as kind of arbitrary raises, and not to say that they're not well-deserved, not to say that, the Porter County employees should be well-paid employees, all across the board.
Right.
The struggle I'm having is, as we talk about these raises, we talk about one particular department versus another department, we talk about the nurses versus the highway versus the sheriff's department versus the prosecutor's office, and depending on if it's part of the general fund or part of the other funds, you may or may not get the price. You might get 5%, you might get 7%, you might get 2%, and I'd have to say that, to me, and I unfortunately I don't have an absolute answer to it, other than, to me, it seems as if, in the time that I've spent, and I'm the new guy, so I don't understand it all completely, but I know, watching the budget process and the raise process last year and then going through it this year, it's a real struggle for me to recognize the fact that everyone would agree that overall, the wages aren't quite right. And most people would say the wages are too low, across the board. And then a certain percentage of the people would say, well, the benefits are too rich. And I've heard many people talk about that, and I think ultimately, and I know it's a problem, it's county government, but ultimately there has to be some sort of perhaps a comprehensive review of what the different positions are being paid, what they're being paid as compared to the private sector, what they're being paid as compared to other counties, to say, this is what the range should be. And then we as a county say, okay, we want to be in the 60th percentile, we want to be in the 70th percentile, and then adjust the wages accordingly. And then each and every year, we don't go through this process saying this department, general fund versus the other funds, and say, it's going to be more of a cost of living increase, and we can talk about the 1%, 2%, or 3%, whatever the cost of living would be, but it's only fair if we have the wages right in the beginning. To me, I just, the nurses are great, the highway department guys are great, everyone's great, but somehow we have to know what the right wage or rate is, and then work toward that, versus just compounding the problem year after year after year.
Let me just, on that thought, okay, let me just say this. When I say this is a non-general fund budget, I'm not suggesting that being funded out of a non-general fund budget somehow gives them a leg up for a carte blanche. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply, in my mind, making sure that we are not increasing the general fund more than we need to. So that, I just want to keep, in my mind, I'm keeping track of those things that directly impact our general fund. So I don't, whether they're general fund or not, has no impact on my thoughts as to whether these nurses need raises or not. I've also, over the years, noticed that our county employees, as compared to private sector, we're not even close. We're not even close. The private sector makes a lot more money, generally speaking, than county employees, and we all agree that we got to get their salaries up. So we've tried all kinds of different ways to think how we could do that. We've done stipends, we've asked the department heads to reduce and reorganize. I think if we did an analysis of all the salaries of our county employees, we would just come to the conclusion, as we've all suspected, that they're underpaid. The good news is that we don't right now have any money to give huge raises on its face. In a 1 year, here you go, we're going to raise everybody up 10%. We don't have the money to do that. Not right now. Not in our general fund. So, yeah, so we need to start working those salaries up. We need to do that. And I'm not going to sit at the clerk's office, and I'm not going to sit at the recorder's office, and I'm not going to sit at the prosecutor's office. I'm not going to do those things and try to figure out which employee's doing more than what their job description really says and not, and this, that, and the other, which is why I kind of rely on the department heads to come to us and say, listen, I'm losing nurses. The fact of the matter is, nurses are leaving. We're having a hard time keeping them on. We want to attract the best and the brightest, and we can't compare in the private sector even a fraction of what they could make working at a hospital. I'm asking you to consider a particular raise because this is a particular problem that our department is having. So that is my thought with this particular budget. I don't care if it's general fund or not.
But Mike does make a very good point, and I think to address that somewhat, Mike, is that is something that the HR department, which we did not have last year, can address moving forward. It is certainly...
Right, it's one of the reasons why we...
Yes, but he makes a very good point, because right now, the department head's saying, I need raises, well, of course you do, and we are just almost, in some cases, we're almost left with arbitrarily, saying yes or saying no, and the thing of it is we know that somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 or 90% of you work your butts off every day. And you deserve a raise. And everybody, if you go to the grocery store or go buy a car, everybody understands everything's going up. Bread's more expensive than it was last year. Everything's going up. Of course you need raises. And we're going to try to give you raises this year. And in this situation, in these skilled positions, when your resume is even allowed to walk through that door, you've got to have a college degree, you've got to have a state certification. If we're going to have competent people downstairs to address the everyday needs of the obligations of these positions, we're going to have to cough it up. And it's this board who needs to think out of the box and find a way to find the money. And I think we could do that. Right?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it.
It's like Newt Rot. Any other comments before we get to the vote on this? So at this point, Sylvia, the number, to answer the question I think you just asked, has built into it the requested raise for the nurses, the full-time nurses. That's what's in there. Nothing else. Then your FICA and stuff. And that takes us to a number of 1641903. Am I right this time?
Yes.
That is not the rest of the staff, then?
That is not the rest of the staff. That's correct. All right, so I assume that was your motion?
Yes.
And I assume that was the second?
Yes.
I want a roll call on this. Let's see who fishes new cuts bait.
Councilmember Conover.
Yes.
Councilmember Biggs.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Paparad.
No.
Councilmember Rivas.
Stay healthy, son.
Yes,
And Councilmember Whitten.
Yes.
6-1.
All right. So that's the health department. I really feel like we're making some progress here. All right.
Hope I never get sick.
Oh, I'm sure they'll treat you just fine, Bob, just fine. What's the next one, Vicki?
We need an autopsy quickly.
In terms of the special rate?
Yes.
Or across the board?
No, let's just go through this.
Coroner's office.
Yeah, coroner has one.
Pull it up. Well, unless you guys want to look at, you want to look at the, how many more of these outside the regular raise requests do we have in front of us that we wanted to revisit?
Okay, animal shelter asked for a raise for their shelter manager and office manager.
All right.
Court asked for a raise for the chief deputy and deputy accounting. Coroner asked for a raise for administrative assistant and raises for the deputies.
Okay.
Extension asked for raises for the office manager and operations manager. Treasurer asked for various raises for, it looks like for 4 deputies. They run from $850 to $3,689. And Weights and Measures asked for a raise for the director.
Well,
Who
why don't we kill,
eliminated a position? I'm sorry.
why don't we kill suspense and get highway in front of us right now? They came here for a reason.
Why don't we talk about raises? Let's just talk about what we can give the staff.
Yeah, yes, just...
Let's just get to this, cut to the chase.
Yes.
What's the, I've asked you to prepare some different numbers, Vicki, for different kinds of raises, and I would like for you to tell me what you found out.
What do you say?
We looked at the general fund, and so these numbers were based on what came before tonight's meeting, prior to tonight's meeting. You gave some raises already.
Right.
Okay. So these numbers will be off just a hair.
Okay.
Because they were figured on what you had approved up to this day.
Okay.
If we go with a flat $1,000 across the board raise, it would cost about $415,271.
$415,000.
$415,271.
That's for 1,000.
That's $1,000 across the board raise.
And that's the increase to the general fund.
This is just general fund, yes.
The other raises, and if we, I guess my question is if we gave, as we talk about these raises, are we putting any of these non-general fund budgets in sustainability problems for handling that, if it's a non-general fund budget? Do we have any of those that will be a raise interpolated into that they can't handle?
It might be arguable, like with some of the struggling entities, like Memorial Opera House and, not the same, both of them are maintaining their fund balances.
Okay.
But the only other property tax-driven funds would be Health Department, and I tried to build in a bit of a cushion.
Okay, all right, so go on. $1,000 would be 415 and change, go on.
Then you asked me for 2% and 3%. 2% across the board is $310,000.
3%?
Yes.
What's 3%?
3% is about $629,074.
And so logically, a $1,500 raise would be roughly 600 and something?
Correct. And where you are right now at the general fund, you've gone through all your general fund budgets. Right now, you are at $36.8 million.
What can we afford to give, Vicki?
I'm basing the general fund on no more than 37.3.
Okay, so what can we afford to give, Vicki?
500,000.
$440,657.
So $1,000 across the board raise.
I don't know.
Or 2%. 2% is actually lower cost, but
Why is that? 2% is lower?
Because we have people in this county that make,
Lower paid people.
Oh, okay. So like if somebody makes $30,000 a year and we give them a 2% raise, that's less than $1,000.
Okay.
Bob, you had thoughts on the raises. What's your thoughts?
Well, I've said this for years about percentage-based raises, which is why we end up on a flat raise. You know, if we're talking 2%, as you pull that number out of the air, 2% of the higher end is a lot more than 2% of the lower end. If we're gonna look at percentage raises, I'd be inclined to reverse it. The people at the lower end get more than the ones at the upper end. A 3-2-1 scale, something like that. I know Vicki's not gonna like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's gotta be a nightmare to figure out. I would
Not to
imagine.
mention, there's not a whole lot of incentive to promoting. Congratulations on the promotion. No raise.
A flat raise just keeps opening the gap, that's all I'm saying.
Why does a flat raise open the gap?
it maintains it.
Well, yeah, that's right, it doesn't close the gap, and should there be, I don't know.
Listen, you know me, I've said, and no one agrees with me, that I favor the percentage raise. I do. I like to have some incentive to getting promoted and, you know, it's okay.
Well, I think Mike said it best. We, for the most part, our employees are underpaid. But do they have a nice benefit package? Absolutely. And this is something that needs to be addressed starting next year, department by department, comparable to county by county, to other municipalities. And in the short term, we've just been throwing $500 here, $500 there, and doesn't even adjust to the cost of living.
Well, later. Yeah, but I guess, and I understand the need for HR, and I understand the need for having continuity and hiring and firing and discipline and all that kind of stuff. Staying in compliance with, you know, labor standards and FMLA, and that's a great and wonderful and important tool of HR. Let's think about this raise business. What's an HR person going to come tell us? Hey, really, I think this person at the recorder's office makes too much. No. She's going to come tell us, hey, listen, you know, the person that's third down at the recorder's office makes $1,000 less than the person that's third down at the assessor's office. Maybe you ought to bring them up. What's the assessor going to say? Well, but my person does this, this, and this, which is a little more than that, and that. I mean, in the end, unless you really want to sit in every single position in this county is underpaid. We know that. I mean, and everybody's job is different. So we rely on the department heads to come to us and tell us, hey, listen, I don't need this person, I can take this, go down to part-time with this person, I'd like to do some raises over here, I'm taking this position up in job description, and then we look at it. Now, that's where an HR person could be valuable. But generally speaking, this magic formula that the HR is going to come to us with, I just don't see it. I mean, when I was thinking of HR, it was those other things: compliance with laws, compliance with practices, continuity in our practices across the county.
That too.
You know, I mean, I can tell you that our staff's underpaid.
I don't, Mike, from Weights and Measures, you got any incentive to move up? You got any incentive to move up in your department?
He's only one in the department.
Exactly. I mean, so...
I absolutely did not understand that question.
You know, the percentage with the incentive to move up,
that was a real game changer.
there's a lot of small departments that don't have incentive to move up.
Okay, so what are you going to do?
Do you want a motion for a raise?
I do.
I make a motion that we give $1,000 across the board raises. I appreciate what Bob had to say, but I think it would be a nightmare to try to figure it out.
Second, and we'll figure it out and we'll make it work. That's what we get paid to do. And the elected officials are exempt from that raise. All right. That's part of the motion. Will you amend it? Karen?
It's been a long time since our elected officials have gotten a raise.
Well...
Actually, we took a cut.
That's true. I will not support it without elected officials off it.
Well, I think the assessor and the treasurer and some of the others would beg to differ with you.
Well, I don't think they ran for these offices to pay their mortgage. They run it for wrong reasons.
So they never deserve a raise?
I'm gonna make, I
Well, I
say
think
$1,000
some yeah,
across the
some
board.
no.
I'm gonna stick with that.
Heck, yeah.
So your motion, Karen, is $1,000 raise across the board. Obviously, your second is withdrawing his second.
I'll second it.
So we have a second.
And I'm assuming no probation officers because it's state mandated.
No raise for probation officers, because they don't
That's
take,
not
yeah,
part of it.
it's on the list here.
It's on the list.
So,
Where's the list?
I'll just pick on voter registration since they just got the 4,000 raise.
Any of those
They don't
special
get it.
raises don't count.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we don't use them. They're not in the game.
Everything that's at the bottom of this page, do not,
And
Okay.
those are my assumptions going into it.
Leave the nurses off too.
oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, now there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes. I'd be remiss if I didn't, I guess, express once again my concern over a $1,000 raise, which to one person is X percentage, to the next person it's higher or lower. I don't think those arbitrary raises, although they're nice, they're better than nothing. I don't think that's ultimately the answer, because I don't think it's fair. But what I would suggest, because it is a big issue, and my thought would be not to throw it on, not to have one more thing thrown on HR, because she has more than enough to take care of.
Right.
But I really believe that we should have, in collaboration with the commissioners and this body, get together and delve into the topic. And also, I don't think it would be possible to do it, within our county specifically. I think we would need some outside help to help us scrutinize and review all the different pay grades that we have, and what's more in line with what it should be and what things are not, so that we ultimately start addressing the issue. Because year after year, to continue to compound the problem, I don't think that's ultimately the answer. And at the end of it, I think everyone will say, oh, I got $1,000, that's great, but if it's not the same percentage as another person, or if it's not correct in terms of what they do as compared to other people doing what they do, it's just not fair. So I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Here's the thing, Mike, I actually don't disagree with you. I just don't know that we have the tools that, or the time to get in there and really identify everything that you just talked about. It sounds
Well,
like...
I would
sounds like
suggest commissioning a study of some sort.
It sounds-
Somebody needs to do it.
I'll tell you, Indiana Farm Bureau does put out a yearly booklet that compares all the counties in the state of Indiana. However, there's some that don't report, such as Lake County, Marion County.
Yeah, but Lake County
Things like
Special,
that.
they just talk about it at their family get-together.
Yeah, and
Here's the thing, though, Mike, I'm with you, and I think this is a wonderful discussion for next year, but as we sit here today, I wanted the auditor to give us the pot of money that we have available to give raises, and to give us our potential. So if we only have $400-some thousand available for raises, if we give somebody $1,500, that means that folks elsewhere are going to get $600. It didn't seem the year to do that. So everybody's working hard, everybody wants to see a little more on their paycheck, and I want to do that.
We were in a position, we need to get it done, no doubt.
Right.
And so let's get it done. However, next year, let's handle it differently.
Yeah, and we might have a little more money, and things might be,
Right.
they better be, better, so, okay. Let me have a roll call on
Yeah,
this.
can I-
Yes, I thought you were done, go ahead.
Is this all general, non-general, the rest? Does this include the highway that's here, who's got a $1 request, and we asked, does that cover the...
We're gonna come back to some of those.
We're still coming back to those.
You guys wanted to do the general raise,
Okay.
which,
Maybe, do you need to read those that would be excluded from this?
not yet. I wanna hear what, all right, Jeremy raises, all right, the point that you're making is, I think, if we go back and look at some of these additional outside the norm raises, will that decrease the available money that we have to give raises? Is that what you're getting at?
No, my point was, is this across the board? Are we telling them, like the airport who said 5% or whatever the county gives, are they not coming to the table then? The airport says equivalent for $1, are they not coming to the table outside the general fund?
No, whether they're inside or outside the general fund has no impact. And when the airport was in front of us, for example, you remember that they said, we'd like 5%, we had to advertise high, but we'll take whatever the county gets.
That's right. And so did solid waste.
So those are addressed to this. So, what's your question?
Just cover the rest. We done after this across-the-board raise?
It covers everybody.
Well, unless you want to go back in and talk about some of these, we can.
Well, that's my point. I mean, do they want to talk about, do they have available funds?
Yes, I do.
Bring them up here, let's talk about it.
Well, that's not what's in front of us right this second.
That's what I asked.
You guys, I said I want to go through these special raises, and you guys said, let's talk about the overall raises, and then we can double back in.
So we have a motion on the floor.
I got it.
Let's do that. Okay, so Vicki, let me be clear about this. How much available money do we have to give in the general fund? We'll talk about, what do we have in the general fund to give raises? 400 and what?
440,657.
All right, 657. All right.
Dan?
Yes.
Before we vote, can I make a statement?
You can.
We're going to address the sheriff's pension issue in the general fund.
Well, then, not only do we not have money for raises, we don't have enough money. So, no, is the answer. Okay.
You guys don't have pension next year.
Of course they have a pension next year, Bob.
That's not a fair statement.
Yeah, that's not really an accurate statement.
I'm being facetious.
Please don't.
Yes, you guys have a pension next year. Any other comments or thoughts? Let's get a roll call on this.
Councilmember Day.
Yes.
We're going to cut our salary next year?
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
You know what you did?
I know what I did.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
Councilmember Paparad.
Yes.
Councilmember Reavis.
I gotta say it no, because I'm not giving myself a raise. Sorry.
So these guys, you don't want anybody in the county to get a raise?
I want all of them to get a raise, I don't want a raise.
I feel the same way, but I'm not gonna withhold my vote to support a raise. But I'm not criticizing you, Jeremy. It's just,
Next.
I made my point clear.
Councilmember Whitman.
Yes.
And Councilmember Conover.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Jeremy, go.
Well, let's hit these, non-general.
Calling up. What do you want to do first?
Who's here? Regular Green Highway up there. They're here?
I wasn't prepared for 10%, I was prepared for 6%. Dollar an hour, across the board for everybody.
I'm gonna lose employees if I don't do something here. They're talking about a $15 minimum wage. My drivers are getting $17.97, and they have to carry CDLs. Okay, well, yeah, calm down. Okay, and I just really need to see this happen. I've got a good crew. I think you all got my letter, I think you all got my emails, who could get the emails.
Right.
And it's just time. I've got an exemplary crew, they work hard, they're asked to do the call of duty a lot of times, and one thing that sticks in my craw is...
Pull up his budget.
When they closed the county building because of snow-related areas and problems, my guys are out there working along with the sheriff department. We're the only departments that are still working around the clock. And there's no pat on the back, there's no thank yous, there's just expected. And it's time that these guys get their work. I was prepared to do $1 an hour across the board this year and come back next year and do another $1 an hour. Another thing that's happening is the cost of repairs are going up so high that these guys have to be trained, my four mechanics have to be trained beyond belief to keep the cost down. Otherwise, we send these equipments out and they cost us an arm and a leg, and then I'm back here in front of you month after month after month asking for repair. You know, so this is going to cost me this year $135,000 to do this raise.
I've got enough money in the budget to do so.
Go down.
With FICA and,
Go down to the bottom line, Vicki, and tell me what he's looking at.
there's three different budgets that this pulls out of, too.
We have not spoken to these figures.
Just show me the vote we just voted.
What's the individual salary for the mechanics?
I have a chief mechanic that's like, let me look.
Yeah, the foreman is 4352. What is the
The mechanics are, 38,105.
And I'll make the motion to,
Second.
No,
Wait.
rescind the automatic 1,000 and give them the dollar an hour.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
If his budget will sustain it.
Will his budget sustain that, Vicki?
I will defer to his projections, because he gets the state MVH money. This is not the property tax driven fund.
Understood. What's your projected draw for next year?
It was I don't have that figure in front of me. It's 4,282,000, something like that. Just in MVH, and then I had the other ones, LRS and whatnot.
Well, that's the only ones I can say 4.8 million. What are we looking at here, Vicki?
Oh, these are our internal numbers.
Okay, so, yeah.
I don't have that number, my worksheet, I don't have in front of me.
That's okay, so,
I got it.
yeah, he's gonna,
Yes. Like one,
Yeah, that's the one I had. That's not, this is just the raise worksheet.
we should add that.
That's just the raise worksheet. And we matched, she says.
so, again, I just wanna make sure that your budget will sustain it. And but the number you just gave me doesn't seem to mount.
I'm sorry, Dan.
Oh, that's okay, yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, I just wanna make sure we're okay here.
Yeah, I know, I should have brought that, my mistake. I know I haven't got it with me.
Yeah,
Are we what? I'm trying to get the numbers.
You gotta cite that.
Yeah,
Is this something we can move forward with, if we're approving this?
Can we approve it based on the math working out and move on? Take the 1,000 away and give them $1 an hour, and by Monday night, we'll have all the final numbers.
We'll come back Monday.
Yeah, we can make it 5:30.
Yeah, we're gonna have.
This is at the table, Monday night, 5:30.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Vicki, that's fine. Just, so there's a motion, a second on the floor. You guys can crunch the numbers between now and Monday. We'll be back Monday at 5:30. Anybody can't make it here Monday at 5:30? Everybody pretty excited about coming back Monday at 5:30?
Not excited, but I can be here.
All right,
We're
so,
gonna have the numbers.
yeah, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, moving right along, what's our next one?
Weights and measures?
Weights and measures.
Watch it not snow all year now.
I'd be okay with that.
Oh, no, you can't leave.
I'm okay with that.
We got at least 2 more hours.
Leave.
We're gonna do it for more.
Take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, if you guys don't have to hang for the rest of the meeting if you want to.
It'd be nice, I missed the camaraderie. Come on, we never see you.
Yeah, where are we going, man?
Bingo.
So there's no upward mobility in your office?
That was a stupid question to do. Okay, weights and measures, pull that one up. Vic, you'll have time to crunch those numbers for the Monday. Let's just keep rolling here. Weights and measures. So, weights and measures.
That's the 144.
So your suggestion is to increase the inspector
Yeah, I'm for it.
and do away with the deputy inspector, is that what we're doing here?
Right.
which takes the budget, what, from 76 to 46, is that correct? On the salaries?
Yep.
To reorganize.
What's it do with the whole overall budget? Takes it from 79 to 63? No, that can't be right.
Right.
Yeah, to 69, sorry.
Well, put part of it back into part-time. I think you're gonna.
Part-time, right.
Yeah.
He wanted that,
Okay.
yeah.
Up to
Yeah.
$15 an hour.
Right,
Mike.
right.
That's good, man, you like
That
that.
is right.
So what's your pleasure with this
Move
request?
approved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion?
Mike wants to...
Don't kill him, Mike. Yeah.
The training and education, that's $2,795. I need to take $550 out and put it in the maintenance for every year, because I'm doing that computer software.
That's right.
Okay.
Wiggle arm or something, yeah.
So I'm not asking for anything, I'm just taking...
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any,
Yeah.
okay.
For maintenance.
His raises in here.
Does he have a maintenance line item?
It's 30, I don't, it's 36.
The raise, yeah, now it is.
Ask that question.
But they eliminated the position.
Ask that question.
Okay, Vicki, is his raise in with the bottom line? They're too busy.
But he's cutting his budget.
What's your question, Sylvia?
I wanted to know if the bottom line here is reflecting his raise.
Yes, it looks like it does.
Okay.
Plus his movement just now.
Yeah, that was it. So, the number 69,545, big number?
You need a motion?
I do. I mean, I don't know.
You did.
We already have one. Give me another one with the new number, 69,545. There's a motion, is there a second?
Yes.
I know that's totally out of protocol, but that's the way it goes. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 69,545 is approved. Okay, any other?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other?
Coroner.
Coroner. Who are the coroners up?
We didn't give him some. He wanted them up to 9,000.
Next term.
So what we have in front of us, is, I'm not quite entirely sure what this is. What's his,
Okay, he's proposing, for his executive administrative assistant to go from $26,825 to $32,000. And then down below, he's requesting 400-hour raises, and those numbers are the new numbers, right?
Yes.
what's that do to his budget? No.
Just a second.
It would total $336,449.
Now, you have to take into consideration, there's about $15,000 there that is for autopsies.
Right. How much have we spent on autopsies this year?
We are going to probably, it's going to be really close, whatever our budget is. We've, let's see, as of September 17th, we had about $44,000 in the fund left for autopsies. We still had about 8 of those unpaid, which comes up to about $16,000. And we are having the largest year that we've ever had. We're up about 25% on caseload.
We have the holidays coming.
So we are doing everything we can to not come before you to ask for anything else for the autopsy budget. But, you know, just going forward, I mean, there's cases that it's possible that we should have done autopsies on. Cases that go to court, that they want the documentation.
Okay.
Now, I would like to talk about my administrative assistant, because I talked to you guys about that a little bit before. I'm just trying to get her up to an average, because right now she is by far the lowest paid, I mean, secretary, whatever you want to call them. in the building. And the only thing I can account that to is she's in the coroner's office, which is,
Part-time.
it's not part-time.
Is she full-time?
She's full-time.
What time is this?
It's
How much does she
full-time.
make right now?
She makes $26,000 right now. And I just can't understand why, she would get paid, roughly $5,000 less than every other person in her position when she does as much as she does. Not only does she do her secretarial job, she has, on her own, gone ahead and got a state license to become a medical legal death investigator, and she does help out on the schedule every once in a while.
And she deals with some pretty sensitive work, too.
Absolutely. And I just don't think it's reasonable to expect her to get paid so much less than everybody else in her position. And it's not a part-time job. She is definitely full-time.
They're 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through
Right,
Friday.
I didn't realize that she was also certified in going out.
Yes, absolutely. She is certified.
You've heard the coroner's request, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion in a couple of seconds, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Big thank you to you guys. Thank you very much.
Is that for the secretary and the deputies as well?
Everything that he asked for was approved?
Once again, thank you guys very much.
Night. Hope I don't see you later.
No, you won't.
If you did, you wouldn't see him. You wouldn't know it, Jim.
Well, there you go.
The nurses might know it, but you wouldn't know it. Okay, what else? What other special request do we have? Vicki?
Anything else?
It's the general fund, right?
Across the board.
Well, you did that.
Did that.
Did we do the animal shelter?
Yeah.
You only did a director for the animal shelter, they requested a raise for the shelter manager.
How are we doing on our final number?
Well, we just gave them all $1,000 raise, right?
Yeah, that's,
Right,
So, yeah,
now you're giving more raises.
right,
Those will cancel, correct?
right, I mean, that's right. Any others?
Well, we had those animal shelter clerk.
We already talked about the animal shelter.
Exemption, and
There's more.
treasurer. Those were the only ones I saw in the general fund.
So Dan, are you saying in the animal shelter, we're giving they asked for a $3,484 raise to the animal shelter manager, are you saying that's $1,000 this
Yes.
time?
As it stands right now, it is.
Okay. And then $1,750 for the office manager for the animal shelter, that's $1,000 as it stands.
That's correct.
All right. So the clerk asked for $5,000 raise for the chief deputy,
That's $1,000.
$1,700 to the raise for the deputy accounting.
That's $1,000.
Exemption.
The secretary, we're included, the one for the coroner, we're not gonna give $1,000.
Right,
plus.
they don't get a raise.
She gets what it gets.
We've already established, no, if we address a raise particularly, we're not giving them $1,000 on top of that.
Thank you.
Did we do extension?
Pull it up.
no, we did not.
Oh, no, not extension, sir.
They wanted raises $2,000 each for office manager and operations manager, and they wanted $8,000 increase in hourly.
No, $1,000 across the board. I'm with Dan.
Okay, what about the increase in hourly?
How much are they wanting?
$8,000.
Are they here?
Are they also getting the $1,000?
I think it's hourly money.
Hourly money.
Part-time money.
And they save a lot.
I would suggest we keep it where it's at, and then if they have issues, they can come in
Come
front of
before
us.
us.
Yeah.
I like that. All right,
You understand that, Vicki?
That needs to be changed back then.
What?
In the extension service, change it back to 16,700.
Yes, you previously approved it at $19,726.
During the year, or?
No.
So before,
So we give them $3,000.
So we gave them three.
Okay.
That sounds familiar.
the treasurer had a couple of requests, and the bigger ones was $3,689 raises for 2 deputies.
$1,000.
Okay. Veteran services, did we already do that?
Yes.
Okay. Voter registration we've done.
Those were.
Weights and measures have done. Juvenile codes, they wanted $2,000 raise for assistant director detention manager. I don't believe we've...
$1,000.
$1,000. Health department's done, okay. Airport's done. Highway's done. Expo manager.
We're done.
Done.
So Vicki, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna advertise for 5:30 on Monday, and we're gonna have, you're gonna have all the numbers, and we're gonna have final vote.
Okay.
That sound right?
If you give
President.
45 minutes, we could do it.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Presidente. Yes, sir. $1,180,000 sheriff's pension. Are we gonna budget for it or ignore it?
Budget for it.
Okay?
We'll talk about that on Monday.
Well, I mean, does she need to include that in another? That's my point.
No. We don't have the money, or include it in what?
My point. The same argument.
Well, I have an idea where we can include it, but it ain't out of the general fund.
Okay.
So we'll address that.
I don't want to lose sight of it, that's all.
No, we'll address it on Monday, Bob, we'll talk about it.
Did we get a hard number on that, Cheryl? Do we have a hard number on that pension cost? Is it 1185? 970? Okay, all right.
What is it?
Well, 970.
Huh?
No, 970.
Oh, 970. She needs part-time nursing to go up, for the part-time nurses.
Make sure she has that for the final reading, we'll just address it then.
Okay.
Just in case I get sick. Just in case I get sick.
How much is part-time nursing getting?
Yeah, we're done. Yeah, we're done. Meeting's over, go home.